stage left playing. Today's episode is demonic manifestations, the connection between the spiritual world and the physical world in the entertainment industry. This episode is a continuation of the episode and my article for my blogs, Stage Left Planet, Phantasm, and Astroworld. This is a subject that I don't want to dwell on because I'm not trying to exploit it whatsoever. However, I noticed that the image that was the portal at that concert and the tall man from Phantasm looks almost identical. And in the previous article, I made the connection between it and the plot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movie, A Final Nightmare. And I wondered, could it be that there is a spiritual entity that the tall man represented that sought to continue garnering praise and worship for itself, energy for itself, through a vessel such as Travis Scott, someone who would be used as a vessel for the demonic, since they engage in such activities, or at least they, allege that they engage in, activities that are occultic and activities that are basically evil, and they promote it to the public and leave the public to have a desensitized perspective on those particular things. And for this episode, I'm going to look at the similarities between Freddy Kruger and the Reaper from the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. Because as I watched the Jeepers Creepers movies, I came to a realization that I may have been watching a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, because although the two characters, Freddy Krueger and the Creeper, did not look alike, they behaved alike. Because Freddy Krueger, in those first two movies in particular, was not very talkative at all. He would speak, but he wasn't having this major dialogue between himself and those he sought to harm. So just like the Creeper, it's as if it's the same entity, yet manifested in two different movies. It's almost as if it's the same entity. Just like, I will even go further to say, in reference to the tall man in the Phantasm movies, the James Bond movie, Live and Let Die, there is a really strong resemblance between those two characters as well. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's the same that it would be if that's occurring. I'm not going to say that it would be the same spiritual entity that manifested through the main villain in the Live and Let Die movie and the Phantasm movie and Travis Scott's music and videos TV shows in which he's featured, and his live performances. I'm not going to say that it's the same entity, yet they are similar zombie-esque entities. Zombie-esque entities that serve as leaders of a big group of people using some sort of supernatural influence to do it. Just something to, well, I'm not going to say ruminate on. I've been talking about ruminating quite a bit, so I'm not going to say ruminate. But just something to just something to notice a pattern. So, the Creeper and Freddy Kruger basically seem like the same character. And one could say, well, oh, that's just because both of them had a school bus scene where the monsters was chasing the students on the bus. It's more than that. It's the behavior and it's the demeanor. And the choice of people, the choice of persons that they targeted as well. And one has to wonder, because when I first saw Jeepers Creepers, I was with a guy, and he and I were both watching it, and there's no way we should have been sitting there scared and on edge watching a horror movie. But he and I was sitting there watching the movie, both of us so quiet. Then somebody knocked at his door, and we both jumped. After watching Nightmare on Elm Street, no movie is scary to me. No other movie has a fright factor. The movies of the 90s were corny. Most of the horror movies of the 90s grew more and more corny. Blair Witch, stupid and corny. And in addition to them, the horror movies from the 2000s, the plots were terrible. Terrible. They decided to just be gross. They decided to just be gross and think that would take the place of being an effective movie to scare people. They had no sort of psychological thrill to them. None of that. Just stupid and gross. Stupid and gross. Not effective at all. So, when I saw Jeepers Creepers, I was like, oh, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a hard time going to sleep for about 2 weeks. After I saw it, I had a hard time getting to sleep. I'd be up in here looking at the rooms where I knew there was nobody in there, thinking to myself, even though I knew for a fact the creeper wasn't nowhere up in here. And the thing about it is, I have a cricket dog. Cricket and her brother Corky were like, from what it seems to me, the basis of the design for Chucky from the Child's Play movies. It's no way under the sun that I should have been afraid of the creeper. I'm not going to say afraid, but just, real cautious about the creeper. Then one day I began to think about it, and I said, wait a minute. The creeper, it's the same dude. It's the same dude. I don't care about the movies being different. I don't care about the characters not being not, on paper being the same dude. When you watch the behavior, it's the same dude. Same dude. So, when you watch entertainment, guard your mind, guard your eyes. Satan's goal is to desensitize us to things that are abominable in the sight of the Lord, things that are a sin in the sight of the Lord. Then Satan wants us to accept these things. Then he wants us to be practitioners of them. Then he wants us to evangelize them to others as if they're good. And then he will use them in a way that will make you feel sorry. So feel enough empathy for whomever is engaging in those activities, or whatever circumstances those activities bring about that seem to be an adverse situation. Okay, that seems to be an adverse situation. It's like Satan makes the situation into an anti-heroic situation in terms of an anti-hero. An anti-hero is basically a lightweight villain. One would think lightweight. However, it's one of the heaviest weight villains because it's like Satan, subtle. God says that Satan is more subtle than all the beasts of the field. So the subtlety of the anti-hero, and like a magician that misdirects people so that he can cleverly do one particular thing that a person would say, oh, I see you doing that. You're not really performing no kind of magic yet. Well, because the magic really is in the deception of the total act anyway, especially when he's not using real magic, which is basically demonic activity that assists the physical person that we see, the magician. So the anti-hero uses sleight of hand, like a sleight of hand thing. The sleight of hand method to deceive people. While you're looking in one direction, he's doing something in the other direction. And the anti-hero is essentially wrong. He will do things such as the Joker and Freddy Kruger. Now, and when you look at TV shows like Once Upon a Time and the series The Descendants, ultimately there is this person that has done something wrong, but yet uses a aforementioned background or a presented background presented after his villainous acts have occurred, right? To make the villain sympathetic, or where people cheer him on in his evil doing. Such as the Joker. Once people saw, the backstory of the Joker, that made the Joker a hero, even though he continued to do wicked things. And the thing is, that is what Satan's goal is. He wants people to be where they're cheering people on in their wickedness. Like, yeah, it's wrong that he's doing it. But you're thinking about why he's doing it. That's the context. That's the context. Instead of saying, okay, instead of cheering him on to continue to self-destruct in his own hurt and pain, and cause hurt to others, let's help. Let's reach out to him to help him heal. One way you do that, you show a person the error of their way in a gentle and loving way. You know, not to try to assassinate their character with it. Particularly if you yourself are a narcissist and you want to make yourself feel fabulous by using that person's flaws to make them feel inadequate. And to make them feel like they're unredeemable. If you're trying to do that, shut up. Don't say nothing to the person whatsoever. Don't say nothing to them at all, because your goal is not to help them. But in a situation where people are sincerely trying to help the person, instead of encouraging them to go ahead, oh yeah, that's right, get them. I sympathize. Or when that person is caught, he said, no, don't do it. Don't do this and that to that person. That person needs help. So try to take preventative measures. Then, if you can't take preventative measures to help the person, take interventionist measures. Interventive measures to help the person. Intervene to help them. Okay. Do that, With Freddy Kruger, people ganged up on him. He had been severely abused. Now, Satan, using the sleight of hand, uses this abuse to get people to be on Freddy's side. And this is the thing. I totally think it's terrible that Freddy Kruger, and most definitely, more importantly, real people have faced severe abuse and drama in their lives. And the thing that we should all do, yet Satan will send all the wrong people around you to say all the wrong things. And sometimes he will send the right people around you, yet they will say all the wrong things at the wrong time to you. That's one of the things that he does. And then sometimes you have to, this is another thing, you got to seriously pay attention to the people that come around you. You have to seriously pay attention to the people that come around you. Because if they callous and foolish acting anyway, then when they see an opportunity to be callous and unfeeling, because that's their way of feeling powerful, of feeling power over someone else, then get power and control over someone else, then they're gonna do it to you no matter how close they are, no matter how much it seems they care about you. They're gonna do that to you too. They're gonna treat you like you don't matter, your feelings don't matter, and what's going on in your life don't matter, because they more focused on them and their foolishness. And so this is why God says, treat others as we treat ourselves. And that's the problem. Many of us don't do that. Or we have this super twisted, idealistic version of ourselves in our minds, to where we see our strengths, but we're not seeing our weaknesses. Or there are times when a person will see their weaknesses in someone else, and in a way to, I guess, like, any way to get those weaknesses away from them, they reject that person. They project how they feel about themselves onto that person, and in an attempt to reject those bad feelings that they feel about themselves, they reject that person. But person, don't let that make you feel like a reject, because you are not, because that person is rejecting themselves. They are rejecting themselves. God made you wonderful and beautiful. You are beautiful, And so don't let what someone else think of you tear you down. When I was in elementary school, I went to a Christian school. And my very first day of school, there was a girl in my class. And that girl, from that first day of school until not long before I left that school, about 3 years later, that girl was horrible to me. And it was for no reason, because she had never met me before. We never had a conversation. Nothing. That girl had never met me before, didn't know nothing about me, but she made it a point to pick on me and ostracize me. For my first day of class, and she had these go-along friends that, when she wasn't around, they were nice to me. They were okay. But when she was around, they either wouldn't say nothing or would laugh right along with her when she was trying to make fun of me. Now, I don't know. I figured maybe that was a demon. Or she had family problems or something, because there were other things she would do that was crazy. Like repeatedly getting herself in trouble. And I got to a point where I hated going to school, because I didn't want to encounter her foolishness. I got to a point where I hated going to school, and she had an advantage because she had been going to the school since she was like a toddler, a little older than a toddler. Her and her friends, right? Then when we got in college, she saw me. Now wait, before I go with that, shortly before I left the school, she and I made amends, and we got to be okay with each. I'm not gonna say she and I made amends, but we got to be kind of okay. And if it wasn't before I left the school, I don't think. No, it wasn't. It was shortly after. I saw her a year later or so, and she was glad. She was happy. She acted like she was happy to see me. Then when we were in college, she made it a point to speak to me. Now, though I wanted to move forward, right? I wanted to move forward. It just kept coming to my mind, the abuse that she mercilessly attempted to give to me every day from second grade to fifth grade. And at our school, our school was one class per grade. So every year we were in the same class with each other. So I would think, I'm like, I have some issues because of this person. I got some issues because of this person. But then I kept in mind, I'm like, okay, she was a child, but yet she's still a person who I have, and I kind of have mixed feelings about that. Not too mixed, but still, I'm like, how could you be so awful to me, and then all of a sudden, because you want to be cool, now I'm supposed to be okay. I'm supposed to feel okay. And I guess I say that to say a person needs time to heal. You need to give a person time to heal. Time to really just let things go and heal. You can't force your presence on them Not that she was necessarily trying to force her presence, but I'll say this in regard to another person, well, two other people that I know in particular they do that. One in particular, he is abusive. He's emotionally abusive, and he can hide it. He hides it well for whom he wants to. There are some people say, "Oh, he's so good. He's so nice," and I'm thinking he a monster. That dude act like a monster. I'm not gonna say he is, but I'm like, that guy acts like a monster. And right when you think, okay, we having a good relationship, we having a great conversation or something, he will do or say something extremely abusive, extremely deceitful, extremely cutthroat. And then when he wants to be in fellowship with you, and you don't want to be in fellowship with him, he gets upset. There's another woman that's like that too. I don't know. I'm not with those two. That's from the same family. So maybe there's some sort of genetic thing going on there. You know, I don't know. Sometimes that happens. But you can't always say just because, you know, that's a genetic trait in a family that it affects all family members. But yeah, there's a couple of people, but I'm not gonna even go further with it for now. I'm not gonna even go further with it. But the point that I'm making is that you have to look at a person's behavior, but you have to do things to help them without enabling the behavior. Yet Satan wants us to accept and enable dysfunction, whereas God wants us to grow in his word. He wants us to grow. This is why he allows certain things to happen to us so that we will be able to handle those situations without it destroying us as a person. So that instead of those situations destroying us, they give us the tools to make us stronger. We lean on him and trust him because he is our ultimate strength and the ability to be able to tolerate, to overcome, not tolerate, but to overcome the situation through his strength, even if it means waiting on him, is better than every time something goes horrible, you have a complete a complete psychological condition or situation that makes you unstable and where you have a hard time being able to focus and do things that you really need to do, because Satan will attack you in ways to make you where you can't focus on doing things that you should be doing especially if they are a setback to the progress of his satanic kingdom and his goals. So we have to focus on God and trust God to overcome Satan and the fiery darts of Satan, his weapons that he tries to form against us and the ones that he do form against us. God is our protector and our shield. And we need to focus on God in those situations. A person such as Freddy Kruger did not have a help. He didn't have the proper help or nourishment or nurturing that he should have had at all. There were a bunch of narcissistic people, a bunch of weak people who go along, the bunch of weak enablers, flying monkeys that were around him. And by their utter disregard for his well-being, his life continually got worse and worse and worse, and the way that he coped and dealt with life got some satanic. It became satanic. He had experienced satanic behavior, satanic experiences, and that is how he developed his skill set to deal with life's battles. He dealt with them satanically. And that is what Satan wants all of us to do. He wants us to be where we get to where, like you look at Sigmund Freud's id, ego, and super ego, and Satan wants us to stay in our id state, where we basically are surviving on instinct. We are on survival mode, as some would say. And when we are on survival mode, we don't develop a higher complex skill set for dealing with life's obstacles, life's challenges. We don't do that. So, this is how anti-heroes such as Freddy Kruger come into existence. It's no way a person should want to have any Freddy Kruger memorabilia in their house. No offense, Robert England. I'm not trying to get in the way of people buying their merchandise so you can make money. I'm not trying to get in the way of that. I'm just saying, think about, for those who should hear this, think about it. Do you really want a picture, a mask, or that knife glove, that finger knives up in your house? Why? What is your connection to it? It's good to do some self-reflection, some self-introspection when we relate to these anti-heroes, because that is the goal of Satan. Satan wants us to be able to relate to those characters. He wants us to look at that inner child, I would say. The inner child, and not even just the inner child, but who we are aside from societal expectations. He wants us to look at that in terms of how that person, who most of us seek to protect, the super ego, our super ego, tries to protect that. It tries to protect and nurture that id and that ego. That is what we try to do. We become the ego so that the things that people don't like about the id will be concealed or will be changed. And we use that superego to refine the ego so that we will become acceptable. And in the hyper form of that is where the people pleasing and enabling comes in too. So why are we so cheerful? And then this is the thing. Look at even though it's based, to me, it's the same dude. The Creeper and Freddy Krueger. They the same entity. But yet, the difference between the two is this. One is an overt demon. And he's not heralded, neither celebrated nor accepted, because he hadn't been humanized, because his origin point is of being a horrible demon. Yet Freddy Kruger did not start out that way, and he has been retroactively humanized throughout that movie. He was retroactively humanized. Therefore, he became more acceptable. Yet the Nightmare on Elm Street movie series ended, much like Phantasm. Or maybe not officially ended, but they hadn't been created for a long time. And Freddy versus Jason didn't have that impact that many thought that it would have had back in the 80s and in the 90s. And A New Nightmare basically ended the life of the Freddy character in terms of the continuity of the story without having to start it over. So, into Jeepers Creepers, where the entity, that evil, that demonic spirit, a satanic spirit that could be represented by Freddy Krueger from the first movies series, found another way to garner attention and energy, praise and worship, even fear, admiration for itself through Jeepers Creepers. Now, I'm not saying that is exactly what happened, just like with Phantasm. I'm not saying that is exactly what happened. However, when one looks at the influence of Satanism and the occult on the entertainment industry, it's something to consider. It is something to consider. So, that is what I wanted to discuss. That is what I'll be discussing in my Anchor FM podcast and in my blog. I will be discussing it further. And I wanted to use this as a way to let you know, be careful with one another. God says in the last days that men will grow to be more selfish. And we need to be careful, because there are good tools such as psychotherapy that are being used that have been kind of manipulated into making people a bit more selfish. Because Satan is subtle. And I'm not saying don't get psychological help. Don't get psychiatric help. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying be careful. Because Satan wants to desensitize us to God, and he wants to desensitize us to doing that which is right, and he wants to desensitize us to one another, okay? And he will take something that's good and use it for all sorts of horrible things. So, when you're watching self-help videos, be careful, because the same people, like this, There are beautiful people such as surviving narcissism and narcissism survivors, and Dr. Phil and a whole lot of other people that will give you fairly good, if not beautiful. The reason I say fairly good, please y'all don't take that as insult. I would say fairly good because none of us are perfect, and I don't want to say, oh, everything they say is wonderful, and then I come across something later. I'm like, oh, wow. But they give good advice. They give well-meaning good advice, right? However, to their enemies who feel as if they are being exposed by folks who give self-help advice, they will pretend, like Satan, they will pretend to be self-help experts and tell you things that sound similar to the good self-help advice that well-meaning people and experts give. But the advice of those who don't mean well. For instance, it would be like a narcissist becoming a therapist or a self-help saying that they're a self-help expert, and their whole goal is to get people to manipulate people and to accept their narcissistic behavior and to think that something is wrong with them. There are persons who said, like Cat Williams, and this is no offense to him, but he, in his routine, he said it's called self-esteem. That means that if your esteem is broken or low, that's something you need to fix yourself. He said something like that, but this is the thing. We need to be caring and careful of other people's feelings, you know. We can't just say, oh, it's self. Because, I mean, to an extent, it is. It is. You have control over how you feel and how you let others make you feel. However, it is all of our responsibilities to not make, to not take it upon ourselves to make others feel inadequate or have low self-esteem. You know, there's no that however that person's self-esteem is, that's no excuse for abuse. That's no excuse for abuse. So, yet there is wisdom in what he said. It's just that the abuser has to be held accountable, and more in line with this anti-hero popularity, the popularity of the anti-hero, the abuser is being sympathized with rather than held accountable. And that is a problem. And it's like children in high school and middle school and elementary school. It's all fun and it's all funny and it's all just, you know, life, and ignore it until that abuser abuses you. If you don't have a problem with an abuser abusing somebody else, please don't have a problem with them abusing you too. Because when you are their focus, don't try to say, oh, they so horrible, and try to tell other people about it. Where you sat there and laughed at the person that was being their punching bag. You laughed at the person that they abused. You laughed at the abuser. So, don't even say a word unless it starts with, I was wrong. I should have been more kind and thoughtful to the person being abused. I should have been more helpful to the person being abused. Unless you're about to say that, don't say nothing. Don't say a word if you've been enabling the abuse, such as what we saw in Nightmare on Elm Street movies and in the Carrie movies. There were so-called nice people, but them nice people showed side down, just looked, didn't say nothing. Some of them even was sitting there laughing, joining in the abuse. And usually the crowd of people that sit there and laugh, that is just as abusive as the person that is doing the abuse. So, we need to take care of one another. And rather than celebrating the anti-hero vengeful behavior, let's intervene when we see a problem happening. Let's try to prevent the problem when we recognize that it's about to happen. Don't let things spiral out of control and then try to step up as if your help then is this big fantastic deal when you could have taken preventative and interventionist methods to stop the situation altogether, or to help that person while they had a stronger opportunity to help themselves. Such as when you hear people say, if only I had known, if only someone would have told me. And definitely don't grow weary in well-doing when that person needs your help after the fact of the matter, when you could have helped them to prevent an issue, or you could have intervened to stop the events from having a negative effect on that person, from negatively affecting that person. Okay? So, take care of one another. Do not let evil spirits, such as those that are represented by characters such as Freddy Kruger and in a way the creeper, but such as Freddy Kruger, don't let them garner any praise and worship, any adoration, any sympathy or empathy for Satan and that his kingdom in which they work, by playing on your emotions and empathy for those characters, those anti-heroic characters. Don't let them manipulate you into doing that. Don't let that happen. Because, number one, when we look at Freddy Kruger, and I say this not as the demon that went into people's dreams, but the character when the character was a man. Look how horrible his life was. Look at how many people could have intervened to help him. Look at how many people could have intervened to help him if they did it. They sat around laughing, making fun of him, abusing him. But yet, who were trying to act like they were the ultimate victims, like they were such the blameless victims. Those who had tormented him. And again, that puts the audience in a situation where it's like, okay, both Both were horrible, but yet Freddy seems more redeemable because he was horrible after the abuse, whereas the people he targeted were the cause of his abuse, were the cause of the abuse he experienced. They were his abusers. Now, in terms of forgiveness, Jesus says, forgive others their trespasses as God has forgiven you your trespasses. Yet Satan, like Margaret Sanger, or Margaret Sanger like Satan, presents extreme versions, extreme situations, right? To force you to support satanic behavior, basically. To force you to support sinful behavior, blasphemous, abominable behavior. He forces you to choose a side that you shouldn't take because of the severity of the situation. It is a Hegelian dialectic. And God wants us to forgive others. He didn't say you had to always fellowship with these people. He didn't say that. But we are to forgive those people. Show them grace and mercy. And when we root for anti-heroes such as Freddy Kruger, when we root for anti-heroes such as him, we are supporting unforgiveness when we do that. Even if we can relate to those characters, we don't want to use our support of them, neither some things that have happened to us, to justify unforgiveness, because the point is to focus on God. And Satan has used the abusers as ways to distract you, so you won't focus on God. You will focus on his distractions instead. Excuse me. So, excuse me. So, take care of one another. Work with one another to accomplish that which God wants us to accomplish. That is what we're supposed to be doing. I said in a previous, probably in my Phantasm, I think it was my Phantasm blog, it was the self-righteousness of the narcissist article, or it may have been a Phantasm article. Could have been tactics of, yeah. Well, I said Satan is the ultimate narcissist, and selfishness is at the pinnacle of narcissism. As Satan uses abuse as a weapon against people to make them grow more and more selfish and less sympathetic and less empathetic toward others in varying situations, while simultaneously making people more accepting of evil and wickedness. Because of their empathy and sympathy for things that occur in certain circumstances and to certain people. So he takes your good and weaponizes it to try to make you evil. Your capacity to be loving and caring and nurturing and empathetic. He weaponizes that to desensitize you to the very things toward which you should be loving and caring and empathetic, and to accept and even glorify those things that are harmful and hateful and satanic like him. So, take care of one another. Focus on God. Pay attention. Pay close attention. Watch the patterns. Watch the patterns. Make the connections. Watch the patterns. Make the connections. Make the connections when you are watching entertainment, even if it's Christian entertainment. Because just because it's Christian entertainment doesn't mean everybody that creates it is a Christian. And just because it's created by a Christian, if that person is a Christian, how well do they understand God's word? And how do they apply it? Do they rightly divide it? So, just be careful. Take care of one another. Love one another. Love one another truly according to God's word, according to God's way and God's will. God bless you, and focus on God.